so far when you got a head start. We could stay at home and watch the sunset, but I can't help from asking, are you bored?
Hello everyone, my name is Febiola.
I'm Vanny and Julia.
My name is Suci and
And I'm Desfitri Violanda.
On this podcast today, we will talk about feminist movement.
Before we go there, first of all, I'm gonna ask, have you guys ever heard about feminist movement?
I'm hearing about the feminist movement for the first time, so I don't know much about it.
Feminist movement for me is a social movement that leads to wanting to have the same treatment or rights in life.
Story of feminism. The feminist movement began at the end of the 18th century and grew rapidly throughout the 20th century, starting with the promotion of equal political rights for women.
The feminist movement, also known as the woman liberation movement, the woman movement, or simply feminists, refer to a serious political campaign for reform on issues such as reproductive rights, domestic violence, maternity leave, equal pay, women's suffrage, sexual harassment, and sexual violence, all of which fall under the level of feminists and the feminist movement.
The movement priorities vary among nations and communities and range from opposition to female genital mutilation in one country to opposition to the glass ceiling in another.
Feminism in part of the Western world has gone through three waves. First wave feminism was oriented around the station of middle or upper class with white women and involved suffrage and political equality.
Second wave feminists attempt to further combat social and cultural inequality.
Work feminists is continuing to address the financial, social, and cultural inequality and including with campaigning for greater influence of women in politics and media.
In reaction to political activists, feminists have also had to maintain focus on women's reproductive rights, such as the right to abortion.
Now we will start talking about the history of the women's movement. First wave feminism was a period of feminist activity and thought that occurred within the time period of the 19th and early 20th century throughout the world. It focused on legal issues, primarily on gaining women's suffrage, the right to vote.
During the first wave, there was a notable connection between the slavery abolition movement and the women's rights movement. Frederick Douglass was heavily involved in both movements and believed that it was essential for both to work together in order to attain true equality in regard to race and sex.
The first women's rights convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York, now known as Seneca Falls Convention, from July 19 to 20, 1948, and advertised itself as a convention to discuss the social, civil, and religious condition and the rights of women. With there are 68 women and 32 men, 100 out of some 300 attendees, signing the Declaration of Sentiment, also known as the Declaration of Right and Sentiment.
The principal author of the declaration was Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who based it on the form of the United States Declaration of Independence. She was a key organizer of the convention along with Lucretia Cobbin Mott and Martha Cobbin Reid.
Second wave feminism is a period of feminist activity and thought that first began in the early 1060s in the United States and eventually spread throughout the Western world and beyond. In the United States, the movement lasted through the early 1980s.
Second wave feminists burden to debate a wide range of issues: sexuality, family, the workplace, reproductive rights, the factual inequalities. and official legal inequalities. Second wave feminism also drew attention to domestic violence and marital rape youth issues. Establishment of rape crisis and better women's shelters and Tennessee custody and divorce laws.
Proverb of feminists refer to several diverse strain of feminist activity and study, whose exact boundary in the history of feminism are a subject of debate, but are generally marked as the beginning in the early 1990s and continuing to the present. The movement arose partially as a response to the perceived failures of any backlash against initiative and movement created by a second wave feminists during the 1960s, 70s, and 80s.
And the perception that women are of many colors, ethnicities, nationalities, religions, and cultural backgrounds. This wave of feminism expand the topic of feminism to include a diverse group of women with a diverse set of identities.
Let's talk about misconception about feminism. Countless misconceptions about feminism make young adults reluctant to join the movement, and it's about time someone debunked the myths, including feminism's good name.
First feminists that believe women are better than men. Possibly the biggest myth about feminists is that they put women above men. Because feminists have to fight for women's rights in order to keep the struggle towards equality, they are often seen as activities who push only for themselves.
Feminists have to fight for equal pay, proper representation, and so many other opportunities that men are often bestowed without question. However, all of these campaigns are for rights that have been denied or again restrictions put on us simply being a woman. For example, we are black women because there are so many cases in which our women are suppressed. The idea that women are better than men actually completely goes against the actual definition of feminist, which advocate equality.
There might be a lot of people who call themselves feminists and claim that women are superior to men, but this kind of activist is not true feminist. True feminists endorse human rights for all gender identities on the basis that everyone deserves to be treated equally.
Second, all feminists are pro-choice. The question of abortion is an example of a divisive issue between feminists. We can always assume that every feminist is pro-choice.
Many pro-life women consider themselves feminists, and for some pro-lifers this means advocating life for all, meaning life for mothers and their children. It would be simply incorrect to state the pro-lifers can be feminists after all. The whole point of feminism is to enforce that women can do anything.
Third, feminists don't or can care about how they look. This may come from the misconception that women only ever use makeup in order to cover up insecurity. Well, this is a large reason why some women get into beauty. It's not the only one, and a lot of the time, it's not the one that really matters.
Women wear makeup and choose their clothes in order to express themselves the same way a man chooses a haircut or even the way a child wears their favorite color every day. Feminists or not, no woman needs to justify the reasons for wanting to look the way they do.
The way someone presents themselves often has nothing to do with their political values, and in certain doesn't serve as some sort of determining factor for their personality.
Fourth, only women can be feminists. It's undeniable that many men feel excluded from the feminist community, and it's undeniable responsibility to work to close the bridge between all genders so that they can achieve equality.
No one should believe that equality is a fight to believe to someone else or that they don't have right to voice their opinion on the battle.
When it comes to problems such as toxic masculinity or sexism against men, men have just as much of a right to join the conversation as women do.
Fifth, feminists think all masculinity is toxic. There is a stark difference between masculinity and toxic masculinity, and the feminist movement hasn't always made it a priority to clarify this difference.
Toxic, toxic masculinity puts down any man who doesn't fit into a macho, strong, emotionless mold. Meanwhile, masculinity is simply a vocabulary that embraces features that have been traditionally associated with men.
This feature can be anything from being family breadwinner to opening car doors for women. Enjoying and performing this action does not make any man inherently toxic or sexist.
We finally coming to our ending discussion about feminist movement.
What do you think about it? And thank you for watching.
Stars.